Mayor-elect Rahm Emanuel announced his choice for CEO of the Chicago Public Schools. Jean-Claude Brizard, also known as JC, is currently the superintendent of the Rochester, New York school system. But he also spent time in one of the largest school districts in the country. Here to talk more about reaction to the appointment is Usher Qureshi. And Usher, what is known about JC Brizard?
Well, this is somebody who's come from the teaching ranks. He spent about 20 years in New York as an administrator and as a teacher. Most recently, as you mentioned, he spent the last 3 years as the superintendent of the Rochester School District, but he also served as the regional superintendent of New York City Public Schools as well. Now, he's been described as by people who've worked with him as somebody who's collaborative and responsive, but he's also clashed with the teachers union officials over his support for charter schools and merit-based pay increases. Now, there's been buzz in the last couple of weeks, particularly in Rochester in early April, that he may be in line to take the top education spot here in Chicago, which was interesting because he had just signed a new 3-year contract to be the superintendent in Rochester for another 3 years just back in February. So there are questions about how he's able to take this job so early. A month after, by the way, a month after he took the, he signed a new contract, a vote of no confidence was made against him by the Teachers Association of Rochester. Today, when they made the announcement, however, there weren't any questions taken from reporters by Mayor-elect Rahm Emanuel or by Mr. Brizard in regards to how this was going to be happening. So the departure, as we understand, must be mutually agreed upon, but that's something that obviously needs to be worked out, and we assume that since the announcement was made, that that's something that will be worked out. Now, because he did support charter schools, we decided that this afternoon we would speak with Phyllis Lockett of the Renaissance School Fund, an organization that raises funds for charter schools here in the city of Chicago.
I think it's going to mean that for all schools, we're going to get a great leader that is prioritizing kids, that's focused on expanding top quality charter schools as well as traditional public schools for all kids. And we've got a great leader who's willing to make the tough decisions and keep the priority where it needs to be, on the kids.
Now, U.S. Treasury Secretary Arne Duncan also weighed in on the announcement today, releasing a statement that read in part, "I want to commend Chicago Mayor-elect Rahm Emanuel for choosing a diverse and outstanding team to lead the Chicago public schools and take education reform forward. Like many school districts, Chicago faces considerable educational and budgetary challenges, but the people announced today bring tremendous experience, knowledge, and commitment to the job. I look forward to working closely with them in months and years ahead to improve student outcomes and keep reform on track."
But obviously, reaction to this announcement was mixed. The Chicago Teachers Union was unimpressed, to say the least.
Yes, the reaction was passionate, I would say. They took exception to both the naming of the CEO as well as the school board. And just to give you an idea of some of the people that were named to that board today, Penny Pritzker, she's the wealthy business executive who was the fundraising chief for President Barack Obama's 2008 campaign, and also David Vitale, a banking executive. They also named Jesse Ruiz, an attorney who's returning to the board and stepping down as chairman of the Illinois State Board of Education. But the teachers union not only took exception to those named to the board itself, but also to how the selection process was actually conducted.
Why is it always that bankers and people who are not sending their children to neighborhood schools, the ones who always determine what happens to the schools that us teachers are in every day, that parents need to be robust? Why is that occurring? We need a process where we're returning to the democratic traditions of America. We don't think that Chicago should be treated like a raw deal. We need a robust democratic process like every single other school district in this state.
So did the teachers union say who they would have liked to have seen picked?
Well, they weren't very specific about who they would have picked, but here's what they said. They said that they would have liked to have seen somebody who came through the educational ranks of Chicago. They also talked more about that selection process. They feel that the school board should be elected and that the school board should select who the CEO, or as they said, the superintendent possibly, would be of the Chicago Public Schools. But again, they went back to sort of what they didn't like about J.C. Brizard. Take a listen to what the union vice president had to say about him.
We hope that his past practice doesn't predict the future, but we're worried about his championing of merit pay, which research shows is a proven loser. Talking about the biggest, most comprehensive studies that have shown again and again that merit pay doesn't work, and it tends to poison the well. It poisons the relationships between faculty inside schools. And those are exactly the same people that need to be working together, collaborating, communicating, and working hard to make schools better. He's been a big backer of charters, school closings, and turnarounds. And in fact, there's a pattern for the entire set of appointments for the school board that shows support for these policies. Those policies also don't work.
So obviously, as you saw there, the supporters at the CTU, the way they put it, was probably not the kind of welcome that J.C. Brizard was hoping for. But you know, these are the issues that they already have, and he hasn't even stepped into Chicago yet.
Something tells me he probably knows what he's getting into.
I hope so.
Thanks, Usher.